Now, the ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule says that they will soon have a political alliance council to iron out all the underlying issues within the Tripartite alliance. He says that both the SACP and COSATU were part of the NEC meeting over the weekend in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Gauteng, in Gauteng rather. Magashule says that claims of a lack of consultation with the alliance partners regarding the economic development strategy plan by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni was also discussed. To talk to us a little bit more about this, we're now joined from our parliamentary studios by COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, Matthew Parks. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right. So your presence at the NEC meeting that took place over the weekend, did that leave you feeling comfortable and happy?
Look, we welcome the engagements, and I think we appreciate in particular that we received a presentation not just from the Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, but also quite progressive, detailed proposals, economic strategies from the Minister of Trade and Industry, Ibrahim Patel, as well as a mining and energy strategy from Gauteng and a presentation from the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan. So it wasn't just the Treasury strategy. We discussed quite a few strategies from government. There was a commitment by the ANC to address the lack of consultation, and in particular, as you said, there's going to be an alliance political council shortly, including the highest leadership of the COSATU, the SACP and the ANC, to see where are the common grounds, what can we agree on, as well as a process to deal with the issues that we don't agree on. As COSATU, we remain deeply concerned and opposed to many of the proposals by the Minister of Finance, in particular the labour market issues, where the Minister of Finance proposed to scrap the minimum wage in effect. We won't accept that at any reason, at any cost. We can't punish workers for the problems of management and the economy. We're also going to oppose strongly and make sure it doesn't happen any proposals by Treasury to remove the rights to protect workers provided under the labour legislation, to weaken collective bargaining. And as COSATU, we remain opposed to Treasury's proposals, and we're going to make sure it's not going to happen, the proposal by Treasury to privatise Eskom through the back door. We're going to fight to protect all the workers' jobs at Eskom and the other SOEs. So those are clear lines in the ground for us that we're going to fight to make sure they don't happen. But we're pleased that we received quite a bit of support from within the ANC on that stance. We also remain quite concerned that the Treasury proposals to create 1 million jobs over 10 years is very inadequate when you have 9 million workers unemployed and every year you've got 400,000 new entrants to the economy. So it really needs to be jacked up in quite a serious regard there. There's a need to tighten the macroeconomic strategies proposals as well. For example, to mandate the Reserve Bank to also to target job creation in addition to inflation targeting. But look, there was some progress, but we're still far from being done. And I think also as COSATU, we're not going to be steamrolled into fast-track agreements simply because Treasury wants to make an announcement in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Yet they've been having this strategy discussions among themselves for 2 years.
All right, so the Finance Minister has apologised for jumping the gun perhaps on this document and not properly ventilating it within the party structures and the alliance structures. Do you accept that apology, and what was problematic with what he said?
Look, one of the major things that trade unions like COSATU and even business and investors have been calling for is policy certainty. We've had very progressive engagements with government over the past few years, including in particular the past year, where we had the Presidential Job Summit last year. We've got monthly meetings with the President at NEDLAC looking at the implementation of the Presidential Job Summit Agreement. There we've had detailed engagements on each sector of the economy. What are the blockages? What can we do to get those sectors moving? How can we create jobs, fast-track economic growth? So it doesn't help to have government not being coherent. You saw when the Treasury released the strategy in a late-night leak, so to speak, that even some ministers were caught off guard by it, and in fact some of the ministers in government publicly disagreed with some of his proposals. So we really need to have government being coherent, government respecting the need to engage both labour and industry, because we're all in this boat together. We all need to see the economy growing, to see jobs being created. But other key elements missing from the Treasury strategy is that it doesn't even look at its own responsibilities. It doesn't deal with a declining tax revenue. It doesn't deal with SARS only enforcing an inspection of 5% of the imports coming through the borders. It doesn't deal with corruption and wasteful expenditure, or the fact that we have 50 billion rand in infrastructure spending not being spent this year. It doesn't deal with the fact that the Auditor General speaks to 10% of our budget being lost every year to corruption and wasteful expenditure. So we really need Treasury also to equally come to the party before they start questioning other departments' roles. But having said that, what we do appreciate from government, including Treasury, is the keenness for a debate on how to get the economy growing, how to deal with job creation. That's something that, as COSATU, we've been raising for many years. And we're pleased now that finally the ANC and Treasury and government are agreeing that we are in a serious economic crisis, and all of us, be it Labour, business and government, we all now need to find solutions, and we don't have the urgency, we don't have the luxury of time. We need to get things moving very quickly, in particular with regards to Eskom.
All right, you've mentioned Eskom. Mr. Godongwana was quite clear in saying that this was just a divisioning of Eskom, and it wasn't about privatization or selling off. But you're almost hinting that that this could be a path to a back door. I think that's the word that you used, privatization. Are you at odds with the ANC over what happens to the SOEs, particularly Eskom?
Look, I mean, we take comfort from the President's commitment not to privatize Eskom, not to retrench Eskom workers. That's in the ANC manifesto, that's ANC policy from Congress. We take comfort from that. But we're not exaggerating when Treasury's document says they should sell all of Eskom's coal generation capacity. That is 70% of Eskom's generation capacity. That is privatization through the back door. They'll be gutting Eskom completely. We remain opposed to that because electricity is an essential public good. It needs to be affordable to consumers, especially to poor working class families. It needs to be affordable to industry and business so that we can grow the economy. So we're not going to accept Treasury proposal to privatize Eskom through the back door. But what we do agree with the ANC and government on is that Eskom is in a crisis that threatens the very collapse of Eskom. Several times this year, Eskom has been on the verge of not being able to pay workers. We've supported the state bailout of Eskom recently at Parliament for 59 billion rand, and we're willing as Labour to have an engagement on prescribed assets on how to save Eskom. Currently, 104 billion rand of the PIC funding, which is workers' money, pensions and insurance money, is invested in Eskom through government bonds. We cannot afford to see that money being lost. We can't afford to see Eskom collapse, because not only will those 46,000 workers at Eskom lose their jobs, but the entire economy would come to a collapse. All workers' jobs would be at risk. So we need to save it. We have laid very clear conditions for our involvement with Eskom to save it, but government needs to come to the party around dealing with corruption, wasteful expenditure, and a clear plan to turn Eskom around.
All right. We've run out of time, but very briefly, if you could just answer this. The political alliance council that's going to be set up, what are you hoping it will fix? You know, there's some people who might say that, you know, this tripartite alliance was more useful during the struggle, and that perhaps in the future, you as Labour may have to step back if you are going to be able to push your agenda more forcefully.
Look, our job as COSATU is to represent the interests of our members, the almost 2 million COSATU members, and workers and the families in general. That remains, whether or not the ANC is in power or not in power. Before democracy, after democracy, we need to deal with the issues on the ground, which is that we have 40% unemployment, that workers are losing their jobs on a daily basis. So we have to fight with all our strength and all fronts to make sure those workers' jobs are saved, that we grow the economy, that we create new jobs, that we deal with service delivery crisis, we deal with corruption. We're very keen on the political council happening in the next few weeks. That's the leadership at the highest level of the ANC, of COSATU, the SACP, and it must deal with issues around the economy, around corruption, around crime, around unemployment. So for us, those are the issues which remain relevant. The harpings of a few armchair critics are neither here nor there for us.
All right, so Matthew Parks, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for your input. That's Matthew Parks, COSATU's Parliamentary Coordinator, speaking to us from our studios at Sea Point in Cape Town. Thanks so much.